Hello, and welcome to the podcast that knows, despite the push notifications we get all day telling us that the world is burning down around us, there is still good being created in the world, and we want to highlight it. Whether it's nonprofit leaders solving the world's biggest problems or a small business owner trying to make the world better with a great product or service, we want to highlight the ideas and strategies behind the good that's being made. So without further ado, you're listening to Creating Good, a podcast by Rogue Creatives hosted by me, Matt Barnes. Let's go. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Creating Good with Matt Barnes.
And
her.
Oh, really? I couldn't even say my name. Oh my gosh. I was like, really? And Tiffany Pope.
Well, it's because you were giving me crap for my vocal warm-ups.
Yeah, he was like,
Me.
You know, there's actually a TikTok filter that has you like warm up your vocal cords, and it's like the do, re, mi. But like, it's some filter where it's like, oh, see how good you are.
Yeah.
And like, that's horrible. Like, what if I'm absolutely horrible? Like, that's just going to make me feel bad.
The fact that was your do, re, mi.
Okay. All right. Moving on. I will not take this slander today. Absolutely not.
Okay.
Bring it on.
Anyway, welcome to the podcast. This is Creating Good, and this is our podcast where we just talk about creating good in the world.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
Yes.
That's what it's about.
Yeah.
Because really, we know that when you bring community and creativity together, that's the formula for creating good.
Who doesn't love creating good?
Yeah.
Like, just, we need more good in the world.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah, because there's lots of
Bad.
Yes, bad. Wait, what's the opposite of good? Oh, bad. Okay, yes, got it. Great. Okay, before we get into this episode, there is something I need to
address.
I want to use your term, flame you on, right?
Yeah, that's
yes.
good. That's
I was
good.
going to say burn, but that's
that's
an
like
80s,
your-
90s thing.
yeah,
That's
that's your
me.
thing.
That's not you.
No.
Okay. So we were sitting here just before we started recording, and Tiff started talking about the Menendez brothers document. It's not even a documentary.
No,
it's
just
a
like,
show.
yeah, it's a show.
Right.
But there is a documentary coming out.
Of course there is.
Yeah.
So, and she's, oh, you got to watch this. There's this song in it that's just been stuck in my head, and it's so good and whatever. And sing the song for me.
Blame it on the rain that was falling.
Unbelievable that this is happening to me right now. And she had no idea what this song was
No
or who sang it or
Nope.
anything. You don't know who Milli Vanilli is.
I don't. I really don't. I know. Like
how old am I?
I know. You're so old.
So Milli Vanilli, first of all, was like the biggest band. You can't even call them a band. They were this duo
right?
dancing, singing-ish thing in 89, 90. And they won all these Grammys. And then it came out that they were lip syncing.
No.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yes. It was it's one of the biggest controversies in like pop music history.
And I had no clue.
No clue.
I had no clue.
I was in 5th grade
Oh my God.
when it happened. Milli Vanilli was like the first album I bought.
Oh my gosh. Okay, that's like
with my own money as like a 5th grader.
wow. That's really
Like
saying
I
something.
had my parents take me to a place that you would never have known and called the Warehouse.
Nope.
Right?
Don't know what that is.
It was like it was like Tower Records or Virgin Megastore. These were all record stores.
Okay.
Like music stores.
Perfect. I know
right?
exactly what you're talking about.
No, you don't.
No.
And I bought the cassette tape.
The cassette. Wow. I haven't heard
Yes.
that in a while.
Yes, the cassette tape. And I was like, I thought I was so cool because Blame It on the Rain. And
Yeah.
girl, you know it's true. And all of a sudden, it went from you were so cool if you were into Milli Vanilli to no one admitted they ever liked Milli Vanilli overnight. Like overnight, you were like, oh, I never, no, I didn't. I had nothing to do with them. I didn't like them.
That's funny.
Yeah. So
Yeah, I had no
wow,
clue.
I can't believe you had no idea.
Yeah.
But it was quite a while before. It was probably 14 years before you were born.
Yeah. I wasn't even thought of. So
Oh, man.
Good times.
Okay. Well, that is not what this podcast is about. That was not creating good. That was creating lies.
bad.
As we have already previously established, which is the opposite of good. Yeah, that's what it is. Oh, man. All right. Well,
Let's get into it.
on today's episode, we have a guest who is definitely creating good in the world. His name is Jehron Petty. He is not related to Tom Petty. I'll
Way to
tell
put
you
that out there.
I got to the point. I got to that question
You were
quickly in the interview.
Are you related to Tom Petty?
Well, I assumed he isn't.
You
He
would be
wasn't.
fangirling. You'd be like, what?
What?
No way.
Oh my gosh. No, Jehron Petty, he is the founder and CEO of ColorStack, and he dedicated his life basically to increasing the number of Black and Latinx computer science graduates by starting ColorStack to give them opportunities in the computer science and programming world that is typically a pretty underrepresented community in that field.
Yeah.
And man, his story is amazing, and he's just doing some really, really cool work. And talk about creating good. This guy's out there. He's doing it. So it was a great interview. He's just a cool dude, and I'm really excited for everybody to hear it. I'm here with Jehron Petty. Jehron, thanks for being here on the podcast today.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man. I'm so excited to dive in and hear about you and what you're doing at ColorStack. But before we do that, we always start with a segment we call 3 random questions.
Let's do it.
So
I'm ready.
I've got a list of like 100 random questions, and then we randomly choose 3 of them. So it's very, very random, apparently. And then, I'll lightly judge your answers, of course.
Okay. That's expected. That's
right.
Cool with that.
All right. Today, let's see. We got, what is your favorite flavor of ice cream?
Oh, cookies and cream. Had it last night.
Nice. Me too. It's the best.
Yes.
You like toppings on it or just as is?
Just as is, but last night we did like a brownie cookie thing and put the cookies and cream on top of that. So it was just, yeah.
Where are you located?
New York, Baldwin.
Oh, you're too far for me to just, stop in and grab some ice cream. I'll bring the kids and, we'll eat all your ice cream. All right. What giant company do you think you could do a better job of running than whoever's in charge now?
These are like perfect for me because I think about these questions a lot.
Me too.
This company, LinkedIn. LinkedIn is a terrible product. They need to do a lot better with some of their features, and I think I would do a better job.
What one thing would you want to see on LinkedIn that's not there now or changed?
I think the first thing I would try to do if I was on the product side, I would change like the idea of connections. I think we are just now, a lot of people are accepting connections. A lot of salespeople are connecting people just to sell. So it's like, we should rethink we should rethink that definition of what it means to be connected. So you can actually know if someone is on an email basis with this person or just kind of went to an event with them. Like that layer of data, I think is needed.
It's a great idea. Yeah. It's interesting because, before the pandemic, I kind of thought, LinkedIn's almost dead. I thought, people put their stuff there. They're not even sure why. Yeah. And then all of a sudden in the last 2 years, ever since the pandemic ended, I don't know, people are looking for jobs, whatever, but it's like LinkedIn is the place you have to be. But you're right. It's it's like trying to sift through and figure out what's good and what's not and who's worth responding to and who's not. It's rough. I think we reached out to you on LinkedIn, I think, right?
I can't remember, but that's probably likely.
Probably. I think so. Probably.
Yeah.
It's usually how we do it. All right. Last one. Are you more introverted or extroverted?
Introverted, but that is not what most people expect.
Yeah. But you get your energy from your alone time then.
Yes, 100%.
Got to have that recharge. You got kids?
Yep. No. Just got married though a couple months ago.
Congrats. Congrats. That's awesome. Well, I am naturally an extrovert, but everybody needs to recharge sometimes, right? And now that I have 5 kids, I'm with people all day, and then I go home and I'm with people, who, and everyone needs me, and then I go home and everyone needs me there, and then I'm just like, oh my gosh, so I think it's driven me to introversion. I'm like, wow, I did not realize how much I need that recharge time. I never had.
Yeah.
It wasn't a problem before, but I mean, kids are the best. It's awesome. But at the same time, like, wow. And then, we waited till later in life. So, you're a little older, need a little more rest anyway.
Yeah, exactly. There's multiple factors contributing to that for sure.
Yeah. It's all good stuff. All right. Well, tell me your origin story. Where'd you come from? How'd you get to where you're at? And what is ColorStack and what are you doing?
Yeah. So I grew up in New York. I was actually born in St. Thomas, U.S. Virgin Island. Family's Caribbean background. Studied in college at Cornell. Studied computer science there, and that part of my kind of origin story is actually related to ColorStack because studied computer science there, realized there was an underrepresentation problem firsthand with like my friends, not even knowing that it was an industry-wide thing, and just started to solve the problem. And as I realized the scale of the problem got bigger, I just tried to solve the next biggest version of it, and now I'm doing it for the entire country versus At the time, it was just, in this class or in our department as a whole or at the internship I was at, right?
Yeah.
So ColorStack, our mission's super clear, right? To increase the number of Black and Latinx computer science graduates that go on to start rewarding technical careers. So it's really about taking, the ones who have already graduated, making sure they're getting jobs, the ones who
Yeah.
dropped computer science before they graduated, how do we keep them in to persist? And then the ones that are coming in who are actually very well fit for computer science, but don't even try because they don't think it's for them.
Interesting. That's
Yeah.
awesome. That's really cool.
Thank
So
you.
are you by nature a problem solver? I mean, you see something,
Yeah.
you're like, come on, I mean, even the fact that your answer to the big companies question, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
those
Yeah.
of us that are kind of like, we sit there and we think about those things. I sit at a restaurant and think like, wait a minute, why did they set it up this way? It shouldn't be this way. It should be that way.
That
And
is me.
you,
That is
right?
me.
Like,
Yeah.
and by the time you leave, you're like, I'm going to quit my job and go be a manager at this restaurant and fix it. And then my
Yeah.
wife's like, you're an idiot. Stop.
That is exactly me. I started my entrepreneurship journey pretty early. I would say I started my first business at 16.
Oh, what
So
was
that
that?
was fixing phones. And it was because of I had a research paper that was due in a week at the time. The backlight of my laptop goes out. I didn't know
Oh,
that was the problem at the time, but it just went black. And then problem solver, I'm trying to investigate, like, is the thing all dead? And I realized that, like, no, like I can still see some text, but it's like really, really dim.
yeah.
So then I looked that up and found that the LED backlight was probably cut out. So then I talked to Microsoft or whatever. They couldn't, fix it and ship it back in time. So I was like, I have like 3 days to fix this. So I
Yeah.
literally looked up a YouTube video, ordered a screen on Amazon, got it in a couple of days, and fixed it in time to finish my research paper. And that began that business.
I love those accidental starts. You know what I mean? Where it's like this random thing happens, it opens your eyes to something, and then you're on a path. I love going. It's so fascinating to me without getting too much on a tangent because it's not really
Yeah.
what we're here for. But it's always fascinating to me to find out, like, whether it's for myself looking back on my own life or hearing other people's stories and realizing this. It's usually some random occurrence that happens that gives you that moment that sends you down a different path. And when you trace it back, you're like, if my laptop backlight hadn't died, I might not be running this company right now. You know
Right.
what I mean? It's so
Right.
crazy. I love
Right.
that stuff. It's so
Yeah.
fascinating. So, okay. So you, how long have you been doing ColorStack?
4 years in 8 days. It'll be 4 years.
Nice.
Yeah.
And how's it going?
It's fun. I mean, every day I wake up still motivated, still fulfilled, right?
Yeah.
There's nothing else I'd rather be doing. But it has its challenges, right? Like I started it immediately after graduating college. So I hadn't gotten the chance to be a professional, have a full-time job, learn and grow as a manager, all these different things. I've had to just figure it all out along the way.
Yeah.
And then it's funny because like that's hard, but it's also what I'm more attracted to. Like I kind of like
Right.
that thrill of
To solve the puzzle. Yeah.
getting to solve the puzzle. So it's definitely had its challenges, but overall the org is doing really strong. Like all of our, our membership growth is up and to the right. We're doubling members every year.
Nice.
The value that they're getting, we just ran a survey that we do annually, and a lot of those percentages of like people who are confident in completing their degrees, getting a job, like all those numbers are going up year over year. And so we still have a lot of momentum, even though the market is contracting in terms of like D&I spend and
Yeah.
recruiting and a lot of the things that really brought us a lot of early funding. We're still growing in terms of our impact. And so my job right now is getting a little bit challenging because I'm trying to figure out how I can continue to fuel that.
Yeah.
Even though, the market for it, so to speak, has contracted. But I mean, we are definitely still, growing in all the right ways.
That's awesome. As a founder, have you struggled with figuring out the best way to utilize you? In other words, I find with a lot of startup nonprofits, you get somebody who's super passionate about a thing. They start this thing. They're doing most of it at first because, trying to get it off the ground and whatever. And then like a lot of times what I come in and have to do is help them strategize what they should be doing and get them out, because and get other people to do those things because you're best for growing the company or leading
Yeah.
or telling the story or whatever it is? Has that been a challenge for you?
Yeah, it actually relates to the previous topic we were on about being that problem solver.
Yeah.
Because I do have my more natural inclinations towards like sales and things like that. Product development, you could say, kind of strategy. But because I'm such a problem solver and a bit of a generalist, right? Like
Yeah.
I feel like I can do everything.
Right.
Like I have
Right.
opinions on literally every part of our business.
Yeah.
And so obviously part of it is being a founder of it too. But
Sure.
that's been a very hard thing to detach myself from, especially as I'm hiring super talented people coming in, where it's like, how do I stop myself from trying to get in the weeds
Yep.
when I genuinely feel like I have something of value to add? But
Yep.
even if it is valuable, it's one, not maybe not the best use of my time because I'm context switching so much.
Yeah.
But two, it's also not empowering for that team member, right? Or that
Right.
department. Like they
Right.
need to be able to run their own race. So that's definitely been a challenge. I think, the self-reflection that's required has always been there, I think, though. I still know I can tell you what my strengths are and kind of what I'm really not good at. And so, I've always hired out for like the ops type of things or program
Yeah.
management and things like that. But on fundraising, especially and program development strategy, like those are things where I am hiring help, but I'm also having a challenge of like giving away too much of that, ownership. So
Yeah.
working
No,
on
it
it.
sounds like we're very similar in that way. It is that challenge. And it's honestly, whether it's nonprofit or for profit, it's an organizational challenge of figuring out that balance there because you do want to be involved, but you want to give people that freedom and empower them and that you want to use your strengths, but also use your time wisely. And so I always am, for myself and for others, and for me, it's hard. You always need that outside perspective. So I kind of like to have my team give me that feedback too of like,
Yeah.
you're getting too involved in this. Like
Yeah.
it's, like, and there's people on my team that I trust to have that perspective and let me know. Because there's times where I'm like, okay, yeah, I got too sucked into that one. Sometimes I need to, it's good for me to step in and give my expertise or my background, my vision on things. But,
Right.
and it's always kind of that balancing act of how much, but as as an organization grows, it is continually changing as well too. So it's not like
Right.
figuring out a formula where you're like, I spend 30% of my time and forever that's how it'll be. But even and especially with nonprofits, there's so many other aspects. What does your fundraising look like? How are you funding your organization?
Yeah, good question. First 3 years, probably, I mean, first two for sure, and maybe a little bit of the third fiscal year, we had we're operating at a surplus from just this one revenue stream, which was corporate university recruiting partnerships. So
Okay.
you think of hiring, and a lot of recruiters go to events, they sponsor conferences, they go to career fairs, especially when it comes to university, they're going to campus, they're going to conferences, they're doing things to hire those interns and new grads,
Right.
right? So there was already a budget that made sense, and I was familiar with it because a lot of those companies came to my campus and sponsored the clubs that I was working on. So I already knew about that model. And so
Cool.
when I started ColorStack, it's actually a really unique story because a lot of these recruiters, I was in their pipelines as a
Okay.
CS student.
Yeah.
And so
Oh, yeah.
when I basically turned down my offer, full-time offer, I reached out to not only, the company I was in process with, but all the other companies that were trying to recruit me and say, hey, like, I'm not on the market anymore, but I'm going to start this org that's going to help you find more me's in the world.
Yeah.
And so that really helped us from day one
That's awesome.
build that revenue stream. So companies are still today paying us anywhere from 5 to 80K a year to do events, get a
Sure.
resume book, support our students for talent acquisition purposes. So that was up until last fiscal year. It was covering more than our operating budget. This is the first fiscal year that we're currently in where it isn't doing that. That's because we've grown so much and
Yeah.
that just hasn't kept up with it.
So how do you have to shift? I mean,
Yeah, so
it's always
right,
adapting, right?
yeah, always exactly. And it's never, once you get comfortable, the minute you get comfortable, like, oh wow, we have this perfect business model.
It's so funny.
And
We
the
always say
minute you get comfortable.
it's so true. It's true in every area of life. We always say it with
Yeah.
our kids too. Like as soon as we figure out, oh, this routine works, it works for about a week or two, and then they hit a new stage or some new thing comes up, and that doesn't work anymore. And then we got to spend months
Exactly.
figuring out the new one, and it's
Yeah.
just over and over. You never can get comfortable.
You never. And that's still, there's that famous phrase, the only thing constant is change, right?
Yeah, yeah,
So, right now, my biggest thing is really getting up to speed on the philanthropic space. I think
Yeah.
I had a more I would call it immature attitude towards it at first because we had such a good model where I was like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, we'll never have to go fill out a grant application. And like, I'm not into that, blah, blah, blah. But now I'm like, I have to be into
Yeah.
it. So, but yeah, I think right now it's really about building this. We just got into the Fast Forward Accelerator, which I think we may have gotten the connection through them. I think that might have been the intro, but
Yeah.
it's a a tech nonprofit accelerator. And
Yeah.
so it's perfect timing because now when we need to build our strength in the philanthropic revenue streams, we just got this accelerator. They're helping us make that happen. So it's really about changing the way we talk about our work too. Because before it was more about, it's just different data points.
Sure.
Like recruiters care about different things than a philanthropist does.
Sure.
And so we were getting very used to that narrative. And so now it's about really talking about impact as it relates to some systemic problem, which it's always there, just we weren't talking about it in that way.
Of course. Yeah. And every audience is different. It's the same story from a different perspective. And, you and I probably, have both seen, I don't know, Star Wars or something. And I could tell you from, tell it in my own words and you could tell in your own words, we're both right, but we'd we'd highlight different things. And it's that same thing. You kind of have to always be able to adapt and figure out, what's the best way to talk to this audience and that audience.
Yeah.
And it sounds like you're not doing a lot of the traditional nonprofit fundraising of like, doing galas and fundraisers and, that type of thing, right?
I think the best way to describe the street, like it's definitely not that to answer your question, right?
Yeah.
It's more so like you have this business model here. We're going to be doing a more philanthropic, that typical grant making from bigger foundations, right? And kind of proposing, here's our program, here's how it impacts people, fund it, for 3 years, like that type of thing.
Yeah.
And then I think the last thing that we haven't touched really in earnest yet, but will be that third stream is individual giving, but not just like the average individual person, like alums, right? We're taking all these students, we're helping them get into high paying jobs. So, and it's all free for them. So having them have, a portion of those alums give back in that way. And then the people that mentor through our programming, also that's another population that could be, good for individual giving. So I don't see us in the near future doing, the typical galas or like fundraisers in typical sense of the terms. But like I said, 3 years ago, I never thought we would be doing philanthropy fundraising.
Sure.
I thought,
Well,
it all could change.
I think the brilliance of what you're doing is you're doing it backwards from what most people do. And it's probably what most people should do. Most people, because we're so trained to think nonprofits, running a nonprofit is setting up some programs and then going around begging for money. And then eventually, if we get enough success, if we get big enough, then we can start looking for partnerships and then we can start getting organized and start actually like thinking with business strategies because we can hire people who can do. But you came in with the business strategy. I mean, you came in with like, okay, we're going to have streams of revenue from here and here, these things. And then we can grow to where people who want to support it can support it. And that's kind of the icing, the cherry on top kind of thing, instead of, starting out from that place of like, we're dependent on this. And the hardest part with that is, if you're starting a nonprofit, you don't have a track record yet. So you're trying to convince individuals to give you money. You're going to get some from people who may know you and trust you.
Exactly. Yeah.
But growing that sphere of influence, it takes time because you don't have that track record yet. And so, but to set up good business propositions and reasons to partner, that's just so much smarter. But we're so, culturally, we're so trained to think of nonprofits as this other thing, as a different way. And so I love that you just kind of, started it the way you would start any business, come in with a good strategy, a good business plan, and you were able to grow it much more quickly because of that as well.
Thank you. I think we're in a good part of the pipeline of this general problem too. I think that's what I've reflected on where, you probably talk to other founders of orgs who are in K-12 or even workforce development, but for career switchers, right? For example, or just people, mid-level roles. And I think both of those are hard to come up with, at least the recruiting business model, because both of those groups aren't readily hireable all the time.
Right.
Whereas we're in this just unique part of the pipeline where everybody is eligible for an internship, right? And companies are hiring for interns, right? So that's just been it's just a sweet spot,
Yeah. So ColorStack exists because of racial inequity, all of the things we all know are well, we should all know and be very
Sure.
aware are
Yeah.
all problems. Has that translated? I mean, has those same issues, have they come up in just running the nonprofit and getting that started, or is it a different audience that is more aware and open to that?
I mean, we started in 2020, right. Funny enough, it's not funny, but like,
Yeah.
I think it was the day of the murder of George Floyd, actually.
Oh, geez.
So it wasn't big, like the visibility of that event wasn't
Sure.
big on the day that it
Right.
happened, but
Yeah.
like we share
Pretty
that,
quickly.
right? We share that as a day, right? And so right around that time, we didn't get too much of that type of funding when people got, up into, because we just had launched a month prior,
Yeah.
or that day. But at that time, the year and two after, there was more awareness of the problem, and we just got the right intros to the people, to your point, who just kind of knew.
Yeah.
They already get it.
Yeah.
So I haven't seen that yet, and also because of the business model, we were talking to companies who, even if they didn't really care, it was probably some business imperative, or it's just like a recruiting play, which is also an easy sell as well. So we didn't really see that, as we were talking to folks like that. But I just think our board and just the early supporters of us made really strong intros that cascaded to more people that already got it. So
Good.
didn't really see, the uphill battle in my early conversations, but I also learned a really important lesson early on, that like, I'm going to spend more time doubling down on people that get it than trying to beg for convince someone that doesn't. So
Absolutely.
I could have, in another way, I could have spent more time and dealt with that problem more. But early on, I said, no, I wouldn't.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it is interesting. I was thinking, like, you're trying to solve a problem, but that in a specific area, but it's also that problem is not just specific to that area. It's everywhere.
Exactly.
So that
Yeah.
same issue could impact just you starting an organization,
Right. Yeah. I mean,
Um,
but you got to think about it too. Like, with my background, it still exists,
sure,
right?
of course. Yeah.
The bias and all those things. But, going to Cornell helps, right?
Yeah,
Being
of course.
a computer science grad who had the internet Googled twice. I was in a very selective program called NEO. Like, I did the Harvard SVMP program. Like, just those things,
Yeah,
they help, right?
of
And
course.
so I don't want it. I'd never want to be, a reason why someone would say, oh, those things don't exist.
Right.
But I didn't have as many of those challenges as others would have.
Sure. And every situation's different. You have different experiences in different areas.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, I kind of was assuming that was the case. Like, it probably wasn't a too much of an issue. And you're connecting with people in this space who are probably looking to support those types of things. And
Exactly.
so, if they're not, they're probably just not going to come to you. And
Yeah.
that's, whatever. What have been some of the biggest, challenges as, just starting as a startup, as you're growing, is, sometimes it's figuring out how to scale, or,
Yeah.
keep up with the growth, or not let it grow too fast, or, that type of thing. What have been some of the biggest challenges for you?
I think it's been focus, like what to focus on.
Yeah.
I explained this to some folks recently, or in the past year. I've been explaining to folks, like, when you have a lemonade stand, or hot dog stand, the person that that benefits from the thing that you're selling pays for the thing that you're selling.
Yeah.
What we're doing is we're running a hot dog stand, and we're trying to say, oh, I want to give, like, Matt wants a hot dog. I have to convince someone else to pay for his hot dog. Right. It's like
Right,
that,
right.
and that it's hard to come up with priorities when you have so many different stakeholders, right?
Yeah.
Or at minimum two, right?
Yeah.
Because in another case, you have one stakeholder, the customer, right? In this case, it's like, well, we want to serve students in this way, but is that going to get funded, or do we have, the support behind that? And so
Right.
I think the number one problem has always been, like, okay, what do we focus our limited time and resources on?
Yeah.
I would say a close second has been moving quickly to pivot as we learn new things, but specifically when it comes to our team, like, how do we move quickly on that front, right? We could have hired a super talented person, right, for this particular role, or organize the team in a certain way that followed a previous priority. But now that we have conviction on a new priority, it makes sense. Like, how do we kind of shift and make that? That doesn't happen overnight. And so we've made tons of pivots, and it's been challenging. I mean, shout out to our team. Like, we've been able to make those pivots, and It hasn't been too much of a headache, but that is
Yeah.
challenging to go through.
Well, I think again that can be a very common challenge for nonprofits and for profits,
Yeah.
and it sounds like you do kind of what I coach people to do, or what I've tried to do, which is, if you're focused on really the why of what you do and it's super clear, as you learn that the what and the where and the how, the details are going to change because
Exactly.
culture changes, life changes, you learn things, technology, whatever it is. And so, if you get people who are really bought into the what, then every time things change, you're like, oh crap, I got to find new people.
Yeah.
But if they're bought into the why, then not that managing that change is still not sometimes challenging, bringing them along, convincing them of why we're changing from this what to that what, or this how to that how,
Yeah.
but it makes it a little bit easier. And you seem to have had a very, like, as much as you've probably had to, you're always shifting and changing and adapting. You've had a very clear, from what you've said, is you've had a very clear why from the very beginning. And even to the point of, one of the biggest issues with nonprofits is you get these people who, man, we want to solve problems. We're big heart people. And then they start seeing other problems, and then scope creep, starts coming in. And it's like, oh,
Yes,
well, now we're doing
exactly.
this too, and that too. Oh, and now we're doing that.
Yeah.
And you're like, how does that tie back to, not that those
Mhm.
are bad things to address,
Yeah.
but why are you addressing it? Like,
Yeah.
let somebody else do that. Focus on what and sometimes,
Mhm.
for us for our creative agency, we'll get nonprofit clients who come in and I'm like, I don't even know how to tell people what you do, because you do 1,000 different things that are
Yeah.
completely unrelated. And they
Exactly.
just saw problems and didn't say no to solving any of them.
Yeah. Yeah.
It sounds like
Saying
you've
no.
stayed on mission there and stayed true to your why.
Yeah. Tried our
Yeah.
best throughout it all. One of the quotes that you kind of said too, it's similar to what you're saying. It's forgot where I saw it, but it's like stubborn on the vision, flexible on the details, and that rings a lot in what we do. And even just some of our values, like our team values that we really try to
Yeah.
live out, include things like that so that people know. Like one of them is embrace the pivot.
Yeah.
And like new team members come in who may not have had that as a personal value, but they'll say like, "Oh wow, like I get it. Like you guys, like that's not just a thing you put on your website. Like I see how you all really embrace that and how that's a shared value." So we try to just live those things out as much as we can so that people who follow those things will feel very comfortable in the environment. And if it isn't something comfortable for you, you'll know that like right away so
Right.
that we can have that conversation.
Yeah. That's so good. We're running out of time here. Any
Mhm.
just like last one nugget of wisdom that you're like, in the last 4 years, as I've been doing this one thing I learned, and people need to know it if they're in the nonprofit
Ooh.
sector.
I would say there's more room than you think to do things differently.
Hmm.
I think we started the conversation talking about that, like,
Yeah.
you know, people kind of do it backwards, right? Like,
Yeah.
how do we assimilate first and
Yep.
then, figure out strategic stuff? But I think that pressure isn't as intense as people may think. And there's a lot of room to innovate, push back, and find the right people. I guess that's what it is too. Like, don't paint the sector with one broad brush. Like
Yep.
there are people that, trust-based philanthropy, right? They
Yep.
they do things different. Like find those people, double
Absolutely.
down on those.
That's so great. That's great wisdom. It's one of the battles that nonprofits face, because our culture is so set up to say, "Oh, this is what nonprofits do. This is how they have to do it."
Yeah.
And we're going to judge you based on that. We're going to give you a rating based on that. And like, we would never do that to businesses, because, every business runs differently, that people
Yeah.
try different things. So to be able to kind of say like, I don't care that they're going to maybe not like the way I'm
Exactly.
doing this. It's,
Yeah.
and just show that, no, there's a way to do this and have success and really help people. Then that's a great thing. A few closing questions that we always ask,
Mhm.
kind of more rapid fire. Who in the world of nonprofits most inspires you? Who would you like to take to lunch?
Oh, wow. That's a good question. I'm not sure if his main thing is not philanthropy, but you probably heard of Robert F. Smith and how
Mhm.
he, paid off all student loans of the Morehouse grads that one year.
Yeah.
Would love to talk to him about the philanthropic side of, his life and how he thinks about that.
Yeah, that's awesome. What do you think nonprofits could do to be more connected with each other, to support each other?
Just being honest about what the cost of collaboration.
Yeah.
I think, because we're nonprofits, we want to do everything to help each other and everything got to be free. And you feel like you can just take
Yeah.
advantage of certain audiences. I think we just got to be honest with each other about like, yes, what we should collaborate on, but like, what does that cost to us? Right. To each org, so that we can really figure out where the alignment is.
That's great. Last thing, what is the part of your job that brings you the most joy?
Oh, seeing students get a job, get that homework question answered, knock an interview out of the park. Just all of those little things of just aha moments for them. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, man, thank you so much for being here. Where can people find you and find more information about ColorStack?
For sure. ColorStack.org is going to be that main place to learn more about ColorStack and get in touch. We have volunteer opportunities, partnership opportunities, etc. You can find me on LinkedIn. I'm all over LinkedIn. I'm always on LinkedIn. So that's the best way to get in touch with me.
Just trying to make LinkedIn better, right?
Yeah, exactly.
You gotta lead up. You gotta lead up.
Yeah, they sent me this random feedback survey, and I put some paragraphs in
there. Good. Yeah, you and I are very much alike. People are like, nobody fills it. Oh, I'm like, oh, I fill it.
I do.
I got opinions, man.
Yeah, when I care, I do it. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. This has been great, and I really appreciate your time and insights.
Thank you. Have a good one.
Thanks. Creating Good with Matt Barnes is recorded at Rogue Collective in beautiful Newport Beach, California. It's hosted and executive produced by me, Matt Barnes, with an assist by my chaos coordinator, Tiffany Pope. Production is by our amazing friends over at Fame, the B2B podcast agency, along with Belinda Carter-Thompson and the team here at Rogue Creatives. Production lead is Mike Love at Fame. Writing is by Will Ainsley at Fame and Matt Barnes and Taylor Bolanos of Rogue Creatives. Miguel Mendoza of Fame is our audio editor, and Arslan Yacoub from Fame is our video editor. Creative direction and design is overseen by Corey Hill of Rogue Creatives. Our artwork is designed by the Rogue Creatives team and Rufino Mejia of Fame. Theme music is composed and performed by Jared Atherton of Chapters. Marcus Ponta and Mike Love of Fame do our booking and guest relations. Huge thanks to our amazing guests for joining us for this episode, and thank you to all of you incredible listeners for tuning in. If you enjoyed the show, and if you're still listening at this point, I'm assuming you did, don't forget to help us spread some good by giving us a good or great review. Preferably the 5 stars kind with like really nice words, telling us how much you loved it, telling everybody else how much you loved it. Also, tell your friends and subscribe so we can come straight into your potholes each and every time we have a new episode. For more information about Creating Good or to join us at a live event in Orange County, California, visit our website at creatinggood.co. We'll catch you next time. This has been a Rogue Creatives production.